Welcome to the Fitness Business Freedom Show, where we're not just building businesses, we're building legacies. I'm your host, Justin Hanover, and I'm thrilled to have you join us for Season 4, 7-Figure Gym Stories. In this season, we're diving deep into the minds of successful 7-figure gym owners. We're pulling back the curtain, revealing the strategies, mindset shifts, and hard-earned lessons that propelled them to the top. Whether you're a seasoned gym owner or just starting out, you'll gain actionable insights to supercharge your business and create a life of freedom and fulfillment. So let's unlock the secrets to 7-figure success together. Tune into each episode and join the movement of fitness entrepreneurs who are making a difference. So before we jump into today's episode, let's talk about what Fitness Revolution does best: building high-performing teams. Did you know that underperforming teams can cost your gym anywhere from $100,000 to $500,000 a year, which is a huge hit to your bottom line? To help avoid this, we've created a free hiring scorecard. This tool will help you identify the best talent and build a team that drives revenue and loyalty. Head over to our show notes to grab your free scorecard today. Let's build a stronger team together. Now for today's guest episode, I'm excited to have Robert Rudder with me, who has extensive experience in the fitness industry leading some high-performing teams, which is why he is currently the president and partner of Crunch Fitness Michigan. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Thank you for having me.
No, it's absolutely our pleasure. Let's start with kind of giving our audience some context into your journey of how you even became into the fitness space itself.
So it was funny. I thought I would be a college baseball coach my entire life. It was where my passion was. I was a baseball player my whole life, and did it for 4 years, and ended up having to look at other options, and ended up going into the fitness space. I worked for a medical fitness center in Tennessee, and went back to school and fell in love with business. Honestly, that's where everything changed. For business, my love for education has kind of spiraled me into where I am now.
That's interesting. I would say you definitely came into this space differently. So what led, you love a business, what led you to choose fitness? Because I would say usually it's the opposite. Usually most people fall in love with fitness and serving, and maybe not so much the business side, but they learn to love that because they obviously want to be successful still too. So it seems like you're kind of like the opposite. So what led you marry that with the fitness industry?
Yeah, it's a great question. So my love was for fitness. I was strength conditioning for the colleges that I coached at, but I was always curious, and I'm somebody who loves to learn. And so as I started the role at the wellness center, I started learning other things. And part of the education I was going through, one of my master's degrees is in sports management, and started looking at and learning about the business side of it. And honestly, that's where my interest really gravitated to, and that's what I started to pursue. So the fitness part was an entry into it, but my love for business actually came through pretty quickly.
And what about business itself drew you to it?
I think it's twofold. One, it's people. I don't believe you can build a business without building people. And so it's building people. It's allowing them to be the best versions of themselves, to continually pour in to those around you. And the end result of that is building a business. So I love managing the financials, the KPIs, all of the data behind the scenes, but ultimately what drives that is the people.
Yeah, no, that is very true. And I would say definitely particularly in this type of space, in this industry, because your product obviously is only as good as your people and your team. And that's always going to be your greatest bottleneck. If you don't have a good handle on that, if you're not obviously raising your level as a leader, and like you just said, focus on developing people, it's a totally different mindset. I know I experienced that in my own gym, that frustration of feeling like, we could be so much better than what we are. Why are we not? It was and it came back to my leadership, and obviously our team, and how we were operating was the bottleneck. So that's completely agree with that. And it may be different obviously in some other spaces that maybe are more product driven, but even still, it's there's people at the end of the day that have to make the business work. We haven't reached that level of AI yet. So maybe if you can kind of take us back through your journey of like, I'm sure there's like some pivotal like milestones that you can think back on that like either enhanced you or changed the direction of led you to where you are now. Like, what were the kind of like some of those pivotal moments for you?
Honestly, it was my leaders. I think I'm my own worst critic, and I'm sure we all are. But there were people that were my leaders that identified things in me that I think they thought could become a really high ceiling for me. Jessica Johnson, who I adore, she's been a great leader and mentor of mine for a long time. She was the one that opened the doors for me in the first company that I worked for. And so, I think the pivotal moments for me personally is the doors that have been opened by other people.
Mm.
And honestly, I think that's our role as leaders is to, identify things that we see in other people and open those doors to where they can fully embrace that and maximize the abilities that they have in those areas. So when I think pivotal, when I think back to things that I think set my career on the trajectory it's on, it's really more people interaction than technical aspect of a job.
Mm. No, that makes complete sense. So, I mean, I guess maybe, and so would you say that you've had like different mentors for different seasons that you were in?
Absolutely. She was the first one that really stands out and has really kind of shaped more the leadership style. So we're in a very,
Mm.
and this, we're in a very performance driven
Mm.
industry. And she was really the first one that I encountered that really valued people just as much as the performance.
Mm.
And so I was very young in my career at that point, and it really shaped who I was because she was the one that really pushed me to educate myself further. And again, it led to a lot of different roles within the operation. But I think it created this well-roundedness for myself of really being able to, regardless of the role that you're in, being able to relate to that person on some level. And
Mm.
so I honestly, that's probably the most pivotal thing. And as I've advanced in my career and as we've gone separate ways, it's really just trying to double down on the things that really got me started in the first place. And that's educating myself really with the leadership style and then trying to marry that with how do we run the business from the back end and make those two things work.
No, I love that. So with your like through your journey, especially maybe even with that first mentor, like was it something that you were particularly open to right away, or like did you have to go through a process to maybe start like stripping away some ego to start being open to mentorship? Like what did that look like for you?
That's a great question. I think for all of us, and I'm not trying to stereotype or characterize anyone into a particular thing, but I think in this industry, there is some ego. I think we all have it. So I would be remiss to say that I was completely open to everything. But honestly, I think it's the way she approached me more than
Mm.
anything. It was, I trusted her, and that was the first interaction with her. Is really that trust that was built. So I knew without a shadow of a doubt whatever she said or done or coached me on, it was really for my best interest. And so I think that's the way that I've tried to approach my relationships in this industry as well, whether
Mm.
it's with owners or with frontline team members, build the trust first, and then they will be more open and willing to do the things that you ask them to do.
So like, can you share a little bit about like what was that approach and the approach that you've obviously adapted into your
So there was
communication?
so in this particular company, we had something called the district regional retreat. And so it was basically 2 days of nothing but training and development. And in this, at the time, leadership really wasn't talked about a lot. It wasn't anything that was really within the culture of the company. And she and I worked on a project together. She was my direct supervisor, and she pulled me in to work on a project with her on leadership. And so we got to work very closely on that presentation. We got to present and train all of the districts and regionals across the company in that training. And that actually led to a role being developed where I was a senior director of leadership development, where I spearheaded the development of a leadership development program for 120 locations and 4,000 employees. So it was just this one interaction where she pulled me in, where she saw something I didn't know I had. She pulled me in and started to cultivate that. And then over time, it grew and actually led to a higher position in the company.
Wow. I mean, Did she ever share, like, what did she see in you? Like, what was the spark or something like that that drew her to you?
Honestly, I think she maybe saw a lot of herself in me. I I think that's probably what at least just prompted the conversations, because she is a very people centric person. And I think anybody that you would talk to that's ever worked directly with her would say the same thing, that she is people centric first. And I've been that way. It was a raw skill. I think there was a lot of development that needed to be developed through that. But I think the core was there. And she was the one that was actually able to develop that.
No, no, that's yeah. I would think I would say most of us, I think, that have gotten anywhere in life. I mean, at some point, you can think back to someone that believed in us, maybe even more before we believed in ourselves, and that kind of like set the trajectory from that point forward. So I mean, obviously, you would say it sounds like obviously like your focus on leadership development and I would say in communication has been more of an impact on your career path than like maybe individual skill sets, like whether it be in marketing or different things like that.
Without question. I think the technical aspect of the roles, it's practice and repetition. It's learning and
Mm-hmm.
development. But if you have the ability to, one, communicate effectively and know that you can pour into somebody in the way that they need to be poured into, not what's comfortable for you, but what's comfortable for them and what they need at that time. If you have the ability to discern that, then I feel like the ceiling is much higher for everybody that you come in contact with. And so going back to the beginning where we talked about me going back to school, like, I'm officially a nerd. I mean, it's who I am. I love to learn. And so not a lot of people would go on an operations track, but be certified in human resources, certified through Cornell in business strategy. My goal from the very beginning was to be the best resource I could be for everybody that I come in contact with. And so when you look at the things that I've done in the past, they don't necessarily complement each other linearly,
Mm-hmm.
but holistically, they complement everybody that I will come in contact with. And that's really been the approach that I've taken.
Can you unpack that a little bit more in terms of like be the best resource for everyone? So do you feel like mean just I guess maybe share what that means? Like, do you always having the answer, or like what does that look like from let's say like a leadership perspective?
I think relatability in communication. So I can relate to somebody, and again, this is very humbly saying, I've put time and effort into developing myself holistically, meaning I can sit down and speak to somebody from an HR perspective on, how to coach an employee who might be going through some sort of performance plan, and doing that in a way that doesn't hurt their morale, but actually lifts it to where it can be
Mm-hmm.
something positive. I can speak to somebody who, may have trouble deciphering the KPIs, and reverse engineering it back into what process we need to put in place to attack the number. From a learning and development standpoint, understanding DISC and understanding that there are different personality styles, and understanding how to identify the style in another person and adjusting my style to meet their communication needs. All of these things go into, I think, being able to relate to somebody on whatever level they need to be related to on.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's been the approach, as I don't want to be just a singular path. I'm somebody that wants to be able to impact people.
Yeah, which makes sense. I think it was like as being a leader or a business owner or executive, I mean, whatever your title or role is, like you don't necessarily have to be the best in all of those areas, but there definitely needs to be obviously an understanding and a competency to, like you said, be able to speak and guide. And if that means then connecting another person into the picture to further that discussion or journey or development, whatever that is. But first and foremost, I think is most importantly, it always comes back to the communication of like how you deliver that, how it's received, like is it productive, is it fruitful, or is it not, the type of thing.
So
So I definitely love that. So I, how early on were you, I didn't ask you this earlier, but how early on were you when you age wise were you when you started this journey?
So I was very lucky. After leaving the wellness center, we relocated to Atlanta, and I went to, so the company is UFit Health Clubs, and that's where, that was where I met Jess, and that's where really my career started to take off, was at UFit. Fortunately, I was very early on, and the things that were really instilled in me and the skill set that I built there, I've been able to carry through. Gosh, what year is it? 24. That was 2014. So the next 10 years, I've been able to grow and develop based on the foundation that was laid there.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, 'cause, I mean, it's definitely, I would say, not the norm either to be particularly attracted to communication leadership like very early on in your career. So that definitely is, I would say, a unique aspect to you, because that's you. And some people never get it. No, but I mean, but for to have that early on in your career, I mean, that definitely it says a lot about. Your open-mindedness and ability to see different perspectives and take things in and analyze and apply different things, that's important. So I mean, with that, I mean, do you feel like your focus has shifted at all from when you started to where you are now?
I don't know that the focus has changed. I think the scope of my role has changed where I'm not so much hip to hip with my team anymore. It's a little bit more removed. Granted, when I do get the time face to face, I think the natural love of training and development comes out.
Hmm.
But yeah, the day to day is a little bit different just simply because it's a little more removed from the front end staff than it was before. But when it comes to GMs and districts and mid level managers, the approach is the same. It's from a coaching aspect first,
Hmm.
and again, just trying to help them see the big picture and being able to pull certain level, what levers do we pull to move certain numbers and things like that. So there's still coaching and development, but I'd say a lot less on the front lines, more so in the mid levels.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm curious on your perspective on this. I mean, I say, would you say like you're, and especially through your journey of leadership, has it been an emphasis or a focus on you being able to make better decisions, like in this, like having a better process and a framework around how you make decisions, to obviously let that like trickle down through everyone else? I mean, so like, has that been like a focus or a continual development in how you operate when it comes to making decisions?
Absolutely. I think now it's just there's more understanding of in the beginning it was moving this KPI, it was moving, average dues, another dollar or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Now so it's more on what are the decisions, what are the moves that we're going to make to impact net profit? What's going to help our EBITDA? What's going to position us more to be able to have private equity backing? It's more high level decisions where, it's moving the entire business in a certain direction than moving one certain number, in any given month, like it was before. Still, the strategic part of that is something that I love and really
Mm-hmm.
love about the role that I'm in now. But for me, it never really gets too far away from the process is the same. We're still looking at the business from a strategic perspective, just moving different numbers now as opposed to before.
Yeah, no, that makes complete. I appreciate that explanation. With that in mind, like, obviously, I mean, I know we said work remote, like in terms of like your leadership approach now, because like you're obviously you're living, in Florida, and your gym is in Michigan. How did that come about? Like, how did you like end up with a gym in Michigan?
Well, first and foremost, the owner of this franchise group, I adore him. He is somebody that I worked with, excuse me, before the pandemic. And the same sort of dynamic was in place at that point too. I would travel up, and then once the pandemic happened and things were shut down, I could no longer travel. And Michigan was shut
Mm,
down way longer than I think most other states.
yeah.
We had to separate. If I told my wife if I ever had the opportunity to work with Bill again, I would jump at it. And
Mm,
so things led after the journey that we've been on with my daughter. After that became more solid, he and I spoke, and one thing led to another, and here we are. I think the pandemic has been something that has allowed us to know that we don't have to be holding your hand every single minute of the day for things to get done. If you
mm,
train and develop your staff and you truly trust them, you hire them for a reason. Hire
mm,
them, give them the tools to succeed, and then get out of the way and let them do their job. And
mm.
so I stay connected to them, gosh, all hours of the day. And then I travel up a couple of times a month to check in with them, to go through the clubs, inspect, things like that. But if you don't have the right people, it makes that much more difficult.
Mm.
But with great people, people that you trust and that you've poured into, this is very feasible to do.
Yeah, so would you say like kind of like that obviously through COVID and that kind of like that forced remote situation, would you say like that's almost like accelerated your leadership skill set versus if you were always able to like be in person type of thing?
I think absolutely. I've always said, and I've had great mentors say the same thing to me, but if I have to be there for things to be successful, then what kind of a leader am I? Leadership
Mm-hmm.
is about giving it away. Take the things that you
Mm-hmm.
have, give them to your team so that they can run with it. And so at some point, we have to remove ourselves in order for us to see how the teams perform. If there's a reliance on you to be there, then I think the ceiling is very, very low. But the fact that I can step away and the team can take everything that we've done and continue that forward, I think speaks a lot for one, their ability, and two, the dynamic that we've created in these clubs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a good key takeaway there, and especially when it comes to like the leadership perspective, is that it is to empower and to immobilize your team to do and get and not only just do but get a result. I think some people get that confused and think they're like, oh, well, I'm delegating, they're getting tasks done. And it's like, okay, that's great, but is it actually getting to the result that needs to be happening? There's a big difference there.
Exactly.
This I think that's definitely something important to highlight and take away from this conversation. You're listening is like you just said, like your leadership style and approach. Is it to give away and empower and have people have a perspective of ownership in the business, or is it to micromanage and feel like you have to be the driver? That's definitely an internal question to reflect on. So what would you say, like, for you guys, for your location and what you have coming up like for this next year, like what's the focus for you guys in terms of like what are you looking to strengthen in your
Yeah, so for us, it's really now that the team is set and in place in very high operators, now it is really drive the business to a point to where we can start looking at other locations. That is the singular focus for this year, is to really drive production as hard as we can from a PT perspective and from a membership perspective, and really position these clubs to where they're sustaining and we can start looking at other locations.
excellent. I love that. And I would say like Crunch is definitely, it seems like the brand itself has been taking off and a lot of good reputation around it.
This is no disrespect to any other company in the industry, because I know they are all good, but Crunch is really the standard. And I've had perspective with some other companies and things, and
Mm.
the people, the process, the way that the franchisors support franchisees, everything from the top down is just, it's not coincidence that we're growing at the rate that we're growing, and the
Mm.
success of the company is what it is, because the operation is as good as they come.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's like, it's funny. I'll just like, even like local like Facebook groups and stuff that I'm in. There's sometimes like fitness topic will come up, obviously, and it's always funny to observe those. And many times I see people like in different areas like asking, like wishing like Crunch would come into their location or their town and stuff. So it's like you said, like that doesn't happen without a reason. There definitely is there's something to take away from that.
Absolutely. And again, like there are some really, really good companies in this industry, and nothing to disparage or downplay the success some of the others are
Mm.
having. A little bit of a biased opinion, obviously, but again, I think the proof is in the pudding, and
Mm.
we've got some very successful franchisees, and it, it's it's a very strong organization.
Mm. So now I always like to ask this too, because I mean, it's just good to have, again, reflection on each person's journey and what we go through. But like looking back and what you walked through, like if you had to do it all over again, would there be anything that you would change?
Um, I hate to. I always answer this the same way. I believe that we are a product of everything that's happened in our past, and we are
Hmm.
here for the reason. We're here for a reason, and I think if you go back and change anything, really, it takes away from the design plan. And I
Hmm.
am someone of strong faith, and I believe that I'm in the position and in the location that I'm in for a reason. And so, do I think that there are some things that I've probably learned more from than other things?
Hmm.
Yes, absolutely. But from changing anything, I wouldn't go back and change anything, because everything that has happened has gotten me to this point in time from a family perspective and from a professional perspective. And going back and changing anything would put me in control, and that's not where the control should lie.
Very true. Very true. I love that response. I definitely have been enjoying this conversation, and like just your willingness to kind of just peel back and like kind of show like your journey and kind of like what's been impactful the most to obviously elevating your journey and your career path and how you've been able to serve other people. As we work towards kind of wrapping up, I always like to leave with a final thought, and it can be kind of a summary if needed, or new insight. But like if there's like 1 to 3 maybe pieces of advice or insight that you feel is most valuable or has been most valuable on you to someone that's looking to further advance their career or their business.
Yeah, I think first and foremost for me, you can't lead other people until you can lead yourself. So self-awareness is a really, really critical skill to have, and understanding yourself before you try to start understanding other people, I think is really sound advice that was given to me early. So, to make it actionable, journal, take personality tests, understand how self-aware you are. There are tests out there for that. Do everything that you can to understand the way you want to be led, so that as you start to really develop yourself as a person, you can start to understand what it takes to lead another person. People first. You cannot do anything in this industry alone. You're going to have to rely on other people. And so if you make it all about the dollar, you're sacrificing your people for that, and it should be the other way around. Everything should be about your people. And if you truly give everything that you have to train and develop, give them the tools to succeed, the performance and the product and the results will be there. So people first, and the performance will come. And then I think, I guess as the last one, it would be, really everything that you have, put yourself into it. Whether it's in this industry or another, go all in and don't leave anything to chance. Do everything that you can to educate yourself on whatever path you're wanting to go down, and then go all in and just no regrets. And I think you'll be very happy with where you end up.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that's definitely a good way to wrap up our conversation there. I appreciate your insights. I appreciate your time and to be with us today and to share your journey and to help others move forward. I gotta say, even if it's one person that walks away from listening to this, then it did its job. So we appreciate you willing to do that.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I really appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure chatting with you today. And honestly, whatever I can ever do for you, that's why I'm here. That's what I'm here for.
And for you listening, don't forget to head over to our show notes where you can grab a copy of our hiring scorecard. And on that note, we will see you on the next episode of the Fitness Business Freedom Show. Thank you for joining us on today's episode. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation and were able to pull out insights to apply to your own business. If you found this episode valuable, please show your support by leaving a review and sharing it with a friend. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more insightful conversations with top industry leaders. Then be sure to jump into the show notes to get access to our hiring scorecard to build high-performing teams that translates into a thriving gym. See you on the next episode of the Fitness Business Freedom Show, where we'll be diving deeper into the strategies and mindset of another 7-figure gym owner. Until then, keep crushing your goals.